Hello everyone, I've got a new turn of skids that just dropped, so let's go ahead and see how things are looking. So we've got turn 44. I exist for Kidzin. He's claimed the throne of misfortune. That seems like a little bit of a lie, since you just killed him. Alright. And combat is starting to slow down a little bit, so we've seen some of these wars tailing off, and so for instance, Tianqi, I believe they just lost their second of two armies, and there's probably not a lot left in the tank there. Sauromatia just lost, I think, what is their last significant stack, although they've got a couple of stacks of summons, and I think they lost part of one of those. And then Lanka's also died. So outside of that, I'm not, until we have new conflicts start, I think we've kind of reached what I'm going to think of as the official end of First Wars. Kind of late, in my opinion. I normally think a good timing for ending First Wars is sometime between like turn 20 and turn 35. We're on turn 44 here. Normally by turn 44, I'm hoping to be maybe starting or in the middle of my second war, kind of depending on when the first war ended. If I finish the first war really soon, maybe even then you're hoping to end your second war around now. But we can definitely see that the amount of combat here is calming down. It's mostly attempts by Xibalba and Hinnom to finish off Sauromatia. So first up, we have Hinnom attacking Iron Peaks. We've got a mill cart here. Sauromatia hasn't had any answers for mill carts. I'm not sure if they ever got a chance to run up construction to get stuff like GSSs to try and kill them. So I think here it was Blessing, Body Ethereal, Astral Shield, Reinvigoration. So he's at 3 Reinvigoration. Increased protection from Tough Skin. So all the way up at 23 protection, which is that's starting to get on the really tough end for indie style troops and scales troops to punch through. There are a fair number of troops with stuff like glaives that can punch through that level of protection, especially on DRN rolls. They can do chip against it. But when you add in Body Ethereal and then Astral Shield, and then on the flip side, you know, you've got Vampiric Weapons working against your chip damage and Berserker. This guy's just going to chop through all of this. And it helps too that he's got a built-in fear effect. Yeah. So no issues there for the mill cart. 25 kills. But then he bumps Xibalba. So apparently Xibalba and Sauromatia are not communicating about this, potentially. Because Xibalba attacks Iron Peaks and brings a lot of Scorpions. So this, I wonder, is maybe Xibalba being a little bit greedy, or them not communicating. If it's not communicating, I could maybe see being able to paper over some of this stuff. If it's being greedy, I could see this being the origins of potential conflict between Hinnom and Xibalba, because I certainly wouldn't want my mill cart killed. Now, if anything could kill this mill cart, it would be the Blood Vengeance ticks on these Sacreds. They've also got a high damage attack with a death poison effect. The mill cart does not have great poison resist. And assuming they get through Body Ethereal, they can absolutely hit hard enough on the milk cart with, you know, decent DRN roll. Because we're, you know, 20 damage against 23 protection to apply that death poison and really send the stats spiraling down. So I anticipate this milk cart either... they do have good MR too. Yeah, I think this milk cart's toast or he's going to run away. So, we'll see. I am curious to see what happens, though. And yeah, because we had the gem burn mod on, he does have access to that blood slave again. So right off the bat, he gets walloped. Okay. Was this the pincer? Ethereal negated the damage. Well, 18 points from Blood Vengeance. Yeah, these Blood Vengeance hits are going to be nasty. So, another 22 damage. Honestly, this Blood Vengeance is hitting way harder than I would think. Alright, where's... Ethereal negated this damage. Ethereal negated this damage. 22 points of damage here with the pincer. So Astral Shield is clicking in after the damage, it looks like. Yeah, this guy's toast. And you can see all the poison ticks down here on the bottom. He's surrounded. Yep, so killed the milk cart. I imagine that'll... I mean, we'll see. I can only hope for future entertainment that that's the beginning of a diplomatic incident. In Raphabolia, we've got a fair number of Raphites here, along with some group bark skin. They should have no issues taking care of this stuff. Okay. And moving on to Sauromatia, where we've got a bunch of Raphites and a bunch of Seir. I don't think they've got enough people to bless everyone. So these guys are blessed. These Oreopada. But even then, they're still going to struggle to punch through Raphite. Well, they'll do chip damage to Raphites, but it'll be hard for them to deal with Raphites before Raphites deal with them, because the Raphites have such high attack values and hit so hard with their Dawn Blades. Oh, here we go. And we've got a bunch of Shade Beast over here. We've got Foulspawn to soak up hits in the center. We have an Etten even. We've got some PD. A number of whites are also filling in here. The whites have decent attack, pretty decent damage, 23 damage. The Pretender is also patrolling here, the 10th floating fountain. We've got Water 5, Nature 4, Glamour 6, and Blood 4. It has 5 gems on it. 2 water and 3 glamour. Still... Okay, so these are Oreopada bodyguards. This Witch King does not have any gear. This is the Bless again. Let's see, it doesn't look like they've figured out all their Awakened tattoos, or if they're able to cast it here. And then we've got some Lamashtas here. I wonder who casted Lamashtas. Okay, so this is the the Witch King summoning the Lamashtas. And unfortunately, they've gone on their own commander back here. And they've pulled away imps and other summons. So a little bit unlucky. Was probably hoping that they would go on some of this stuff, but you don't control Lamashtas. Yeah, so the Shade Beasts aren't able to hold. Alright. So I don't think Hinnom took any serious attrition here. He lost 22 of the Seir. Alright, let's take another look at the Seir. Now, a lot of this stuff was not blessed, but some of the Seir were. The thing with Seir is they've got pretty low protection. So, and significantly fewer hit points than these Rephites. So they are squishier. They're definitely very killy, but they are squishier. So some of them got involved with the Oreopata down here, others are involved with these Shade Beasts up here. They're also getting pegged by these archers. Yeah. So I imagine he would have lost less stuff if he had a prophet to bless all of this. But as it stands, he didn't really have much bless coverage. But you can see how killy they are. They killed 130 and lost 22 themselves, even having to kill through ethereal Shade Beasts, where they don't have magic weapons. So Hinnom has a lot of magic weapons. Seir's attacks are not magical, though. But they have so many attacks that, generally speaking, in a round of attacks, they'll probably kill a Shade Beast. So the Shade Beast lost 120, killed 6. The Oracle got 1. The Etten actually scored 3 kills. The Foulspawn even scored a few, and the Whites got a couple. Now, for 22 Seir to die, we're looking at 5, 11, 13, 21. Okay, so maybe there was a little bit of friendly fire on the Seir, or maybe there were some summons that were brought on that also killed a little bit of Seir, but you can kind of see the effectiveness of different things versus the Seir, since they only killed a Mountain King, didn't kill any of the Rephites. So, yeah, the archers scored about 5 kills. But yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to happen. So this is essentially a good game from Sauromatia. I personally really like that he fought outside the fort, because if there was a chance he could keep his fort unsieged, every single turn he would get a little bit more powerful, which could have made that easier to hold. So I do like fighting outside. If you lose that fight, you're going to lose anyways. If somebody's sitting on your capital, you've already lost, you're just delaying things. So I very much like the fight outside the walls. The only upside to fighting inside would have been maybe killing more of the Seir with archers, but he already killed a bunch of the Seir, and I'm not sure if he would have gotten too many more kills against the Rephites. So, and all the Shade Beasts would still run through the walls and go get themselves killed too. Alright, in Oaklands, we've got the cat. The cat is back against 1 PD, so I don't think we need to see that. In Old Forest, we've got an army on the move, killing some dryads. A little bit of friendly fire, but I don't think anyone died. Alright. Then Xibalba attacking Darkwoods. So we've got this is that same raiding party where we've got the Sacred Flyers and the Shade Beasts. It's been so good against larger amounts of PD. They kill the leadership, and they're just chewing through all this stuff, making a ton of soulless. So, yeah, they don't even lose anyone that time. In Banded Hills, we've got a large group of mannequins. Now, if they could have been able to make it, these would have been good against the Roughites, because they could have potentially fatigued them out and killed some of them. As it stands, it should be a successful raid. There's certainly a lot of them. Alright. And then in Parched Expanse, got an Inari leading a whole bunch of Shade Beasts. Ooh, but there's Ocelotls here. So if they're on hold and attack rare, we're going to lose the leadership real quick and the Shade Beasts will go away. But no, they're on attack closest. So at least Sauromatia is getting value from the Shade Beasts. And the Aussies actually have pretty low protection. They're extremely killy, just like the Seir. But not a lot of natural protection, so these Shade Beasts are scoring kills against them. Honest to goodness, I thought Sauromatia would lose this. But they've actually gone ahead and won this, and they killed a bunch of Aussies. Killing 18 Aussies when you're on your way out of the game, I think is a great, like, just like gut punch to Xibalba for Sauromatia. So I think they should feel really good about that. Even though it's a small W, it's still a pretty nice W for them. All right. I would share that with other players that might, be thinking about attacking with Xibalba. Because it's like you might have seen the fight on Lanka's capital, where they lost a bunch of Aussies, and then you get that additional piece of information. It's like, oh, even some of the newer Aussies are also dead. It might encourage you to maybe think about that kind of coalition on Xibalba, rather than letting them scale for too long. All right, and then we have a whole bunch of garbage. Type of raiding force I would send out. Some archers, some light infantry, and a bunch of thralls. Berytos is all over this with Draconians. Alright. So, looks like they whatever independent attack this was, it looks like they tried to rebel against Berytos' blood hunting, because we've got 8 Beriton priests here. And they did not like running into 100 Draconians. So let's see if these priests were scripted to retreat or if they were scripted to stick around. Okay, so they stuck around, so this won't impact blood hunting at all. Alright. And... yeah. Alright, so let's take a look at things. We've got Xibalba blood hunting over here as well. Looks like they've got 3 different blood hunting ops back up and running at full speed, so I'm expecting a big turn of blood hunting probably this turn. 2 of these look like they're on labs. We could double check. Yeah, there's some unrest in all of these. Probably some more blood hunting here. Still blood hunting the Lanka capital, perhaps, or maybe just patrolling it out. We've got 400 corpses here. Okay. And so while you do have the deep Xibalban raid down near Dark Woods, and then the Scorpions moving on to Iron Peaks, which I guarantee you Hinnom wants for themselves. Yeah, I can't imagine Hinnom is happy about losing that milk cart. But I think he'll probably bide his time while, they finish putting down Sauromatia, but then he might immediately decide to roll onto Xibalba. We'll have to see. This Boar stack continues to get larger. I would think they might be running into some supply problems, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I have to think that this border seems so unstable. Like, look how large this border is. If I were Hinnom, I would want to take over the Lanka region. And it would give you access to this throne here. So you could still plan your throne rush in a little bit. But maybe you don't even need to attack Marverni if you invade Xibalba. You could take this throne instead. But, I mean, alternatively, you could still try to throne rush Sitha in this, but you probably need some more Holy Threes to be able to claim everything all at once if you're going to do that. But yeah, I think Sauromatia's on their way out. That was a good final raiding party, though. And they've still got these mannequins that can run around and cause some pain. Maybe they gather here in Jeleni Agora, I could see. So when I'm on my way out in a game, something that I don't mind doing is raiding back and forth across borders, especially borders I think might be tenuous. So one of the best ways to get back at people who have killed you, in my opinion, is to create future conflict in their alliance almost immediately. So I would take this group and I'd send them to Jeleni Agora. And assuming that, you know, this Raphite stack might stay on Sauromatia. I mean, he's got all these Avim here. The Avim will probably come up here and help with the Raphabolia siege, is my guess. Or they might come here to help crack the fort. And then they could rotate over to Raphabolia. But, I mean, we've got a steady train of stuff coming up from Hinnom here. But if you successfully raid here, you get a lab, you get some gem income to work with. And then what I do is raid back and forth across the Hinnom border. And so you could go to maybe like Northia, and then you could cut back to Parched Expanse, and then back to Copper Canyons, and then just kind of go back and forth across the border, just causing pain and making it tricky to respond to properly trap that force. You know, just to try and sow some conflict, because if you know, oh, I guess he already owns Jeleni Agora, but you could try to catch whoever comes here to raid, because they might be racing to get here. Or you could go to Northia with this group, and maybe these mannequins can reach, because mannequins have really good map move. So maybe you could raid Northia, you know, different stuff like that. I like going back and forth across the border, because I don't think this group can kill what's on his capital. And I don't think this group can reach Raphabolia. They could try putting Copper Canyons under siege. I don't know what all that accomplishes necessarily. I mean, it's like 10 income for Hinnom. So I would try to target areas that I think might cause discord. For, let's see, Marverni is still just sitting there. They should have all the research they need to fight a first war, so I'm not sure what they're waiting for. Or if they just don't want to cause conflict. I think it's played by Chazzy, and Chazzy might just be happy to be alive. Because the poor guy's been rushed down a couple of times, I think, in these games, so he might just be happy to be playing. We've also got Fomoria here. I'm not sure what Maerlande's planning either. Maerlande might just not... Maerlande's time is really tight right now, so he might be staying peaceful just because he doesn't have enough time to execute a war. But he's also picking up a tremendous number of flyers. So I'm wondering if he's planning to maybe try and blitz someone or vulture. I really like the move to get the provinces from Helheim. Meanwhile, Mekone has shifted over onto Glanis. That was almost certainly talked about with Helheim. Helheim has shifted over to sieging these two forts down. It'll take a little bit of time, Helheim's looking to get the capital. It could be a little bit more stable than I would think. I think for Helheim might be encouraged to maybe try an elf Mekone. But Mekone's got these 3 nice forts here anchoring the position in the region. And then Mekone, it's probably time Mekone got some counter raiders out and, hunted down this cat. It is something you can magic phase on this cat. So, and Mekone does get some magic phase options. Him taking this lab means he actually traced some of your pearl income, which is kind of funny. But no major response yet from Mekone. And then I'm sure Mekone's excited to start getting some stuff into Winden as well to take advantage of the Throne of the Artificer. Okay, and then we've got So patrols out a Batab this turn on his capital. Always good to patrol occasionally. And the question is I'm sure has probably scaled through a lot of the income he's acquired. And so might be thinking about, similar to Berytos, all right, I've kind of maxed out my scaling for now. Maybe it's time to think about a war to get some more land so I can scale some more. So we've got a bunch of shed. This army has grown to 240 here. We've got several stacks from I think there's 5 different armies running around. And so, yeah, between the 2 of them, they can definitely cause a lot of havoc to the nations that have fought. Well, already fought their first war, so they'd be looking for their second, but Berytos hasn't fought a war, so they'd be looking for their first. They both border Helheim, so that could be an interesting coalition target for them. Or they could fight each other. Berytos could invade Marverni. Berytos could attack Hinnom, although it'd be unlikely that he could invade all of Hinnom, so he'd need help. And has additional options where they could fight either Mekone or Xibalba. But yeah, it's probably time for both of them to start thinking about their next move and maybe making some preparations towards that. Helheim, meanwhile, needs to try and wind down these sieges as quickly as possible so they can free up their forces. You don't want to get caught with a war declaration from other parties, from like Xibalba or Berytos, because all 3 of them... Xibalba's still doing some vulturing here, and they might have some friskiness with Hinnom. But Berytos and have been free agents for this whole thing, so I don't think you want this to drag too long, especially on the Berytos border. And then Xibalba probably just wants some time to scale. Helheim is probably... It doesn't look like they're getting a lot of income from all of this. Wachi seems to have quite a bit. But a lot of these other provinces do not have much income. So I think Helheim's going to be looking for another conflict pretty soon here. They lost a fair amount of stuff in here, so they're probably recruiting off of that, but I think they'll max that out pretty quickly, and pretty quickly be on the lookout for more. Getting TNG's capital would help a lot, but yeah. And then for Mekone, what do you do as Mekone? You have 3 realistic options for war. You can fight Xibalba, you can fight Helheim, and you can fight I think it'd be difficult to reposition for So Xibalba kind of cutting you off from Hinnom and making Hinnom a viable option is annoying. So you might root for Hinnom to kick Xibalba out of some of this land. But we'll see about that. You might also just want to scale a little bit. He still has to chase down this cat. He hasn't been hiring a lot of troops, I've noticed. Okay. And I think that's just about everyone. I think we've talked a little bit about everyone. I could be forgetting someone. Let's go ahead and take a look at graphs. For provinces, we've got Hinnom, Xibalba, Helheim, and Mekone. So Xibalba rising from, I think, last place, coming out of expansion, all the way to second place is pretty crazy. Berytos, by virtue of the fact that other people have fought wars, has now fallen to sixth in provinces. Hinnom's up in first because they've come out of this 1v2 with more land than I think they realized was possible. Won their first war, but against a pretty small Ulm, so they're in third. Helheim got kind of like a third of a nation, and Mekone also got like a third to a half of a nation, or they'll get that. They should tick up a little bit as they clear up the cat and some of the independents. And then Fomoria and Marverni have not fought wars, so they're still kind of one cap sized. In terms of forts, we've got Berytos, and Xibalba. For income, we've got Berytos, and then a whole bunch of nations. So despite not having as many provinces, and Berytos are still head and shoulders above everyone else on income due to their great scales. Everyone else who's in the middle is Hinnom, Xibalba, Helheim, Fomoria, and Mekone, all in a very tight band. And then a lot further down, we've got Marverni, because they've got health scales and they haven't fought a war yet. Their income actually hasn't dropped too much from its peak. So they're in this black band. Yeah, so they're doing reasonably okay on income. They haven't been completely screwed yet by bad population events. But I would think Marverni would want more income than this. Let's see how these income levels affect the number of troops. We'll jump over to army size. So with all that additional income comes very large armies. So Berytos and are first. Xibalba has a lot of summons, so they're in third. They're rapidly making up the ground that they've lost from Lanka. So this would have been the ideal time to attack them. It was right after all these losses from taking Lanka. So this is the window where maybe could have attacked them and maybe made a lot of ground and killed a high-scaling blood power next to them. As it is, they're rapidly rescaling this, even with the Aussie losses this turn. They should be back to where the zoo, I guess, should be back to where it was probably in 2 turns or so. And then it should continue scaling, because I think Xibalba's going to want to scale a little bit. Mekone's army, I do think, is a little bit on the small side, but it is in 4th due to size points. I would like to see him start hiring more, I think, if he can afford it. But he a lot of nations are kind of in this size. Marverni's got a fair amount of boar free spawn, so they're up in this pack of nations as well. But yeah, you can see the big impact that being able to hire just tons and tons of scales troops has had on Berytos and in terms of army size related to income. For gem income, we've got just continuing to plow ahead. And then we've got Helheim, Xibalba, and Berytos. So let's take a quick look at and see if maybe they found even some more sites. So he's down here site searching, and he has found 6 more gems worth of income in these caves, if they weren't already found. And he's continuing to get out there and get site searching. He's got a number of these guys running around, the elders, who are increasing PD values wherever he puts them. He's got a shit ton of Hoburg militia out here. And we do see our Garnet Sorceresses appearing. So we see one in kind of like the scouting report here. So I would like to see her get into that. Still no forts being constructed here. Although we do have a few unforted temples. All right. Going back to the graphs for blood income. Oh, I thought Xibalba was doing a little bit more hunting than they are, maybe. So there might be a there might be a lot of patrol chaff, but maybe not a lot of hunters for what they're hunting right now. Might be a little bit more sustainable. We see Hinnom turning a little bit back on this turn. We see doing a little bit, which I like to see. And then we've got Berytos reaching new heights in terms of blood hunting. All right. And then for research, we've got Berytos way out in front, powered by lanterns. Then we've got Marverni, Fomoria, Helheim, and For Dominion, we've got out in front, followed by Hinnom. But I'll be curious to see where these graphs move. So Lanka just died, TNC's on their way out, Sauromatia's on their way out. It's going to create a lot of new space for candles to filter in. And then we should see some Dominion graphs jump, and I'll be interested to see what they do then. And I think that's it for this turn. We're still on the Hinnom Throne Rush watch list. But I think to set that up, he might need to claim at least one of these thrones so he's ready. And then he's probably going to want a new prophet as well. So, and he might not have Thaumaturgy, I think, 4 yet to be able to teleport around and claim some of this stuff. So we're still a little ways away from stuff like that. Additionally, he's got to gather the stuff he needs to be able to go after the Throne of Death. So right now he's gathering in Helbathria. So we've got a Long Dead Rough Fights, we've got a Melkart. I think you want a bunch of Dawnguard here, if you can swing it, or maybe some more Rough Fights. He might be blood hunting in the meantime while he does this build up. Looks like maybe some more blood hunting here as well. But yeah, I think that's it for here. Sauromatia's really fought on until the end, which I really like. But I do think this is probably a good game for them. I mean, we've known for a few turns, but really the last two, they've lost a lot of assets. And I'm curious to see if we'll get a new conflict between Hinnom and Xibalba over the killing of Hinnom's Melkart. All right, I think that's it for this turn. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.